Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use the promo code DNVR20 for first-time users to get 20% off, DNVR25 for second-time users to get 25% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons, and joining us, as has become our weekly custom, is the voice of the Colorado Rockies on AT&T SportsNet and the host of the Drew Goodman podcast, upon where you can hear part 2 of an absolutely fantastic, can't-miss conversation with everyone's favorite Jenny Kavnar, and a lot of people's just favorite person in the Rockies community. Drew Goodman's back on the show. How are you, Mr. Goodman?
I'm doing well. It's good to be in Arizona. Good to be at spring training. I'd say good to be in the warmth of Arizona, and I don't mean that quite literally, because it's actually been chilly. Today was kind of overcast, but it probably beats what's coming in Denver over the weekend.
Yeah, this snowpocalypse that everyone's preparing for.
Right.
Goodness.
I saw a funny line, fellas. It was put out. One of my kids put it out. It was, we're going to get anywhere from 0 to 140 inches, and the temperature over the weekend is going to be anywhere from 0 to 80 degrees.
That's right.
Facts. Those are facts right there.
Yeah. I will share with you. I'm sorry, I'm digressing, but I will share with you one of my favorite stories from my broadcasting days. I used to do the Big 12 in football every week, and I had Texas Tech and somebody many years ago, and Spike Dykes, the late Spike Dykes, was the head coach at Texas Tech. Colorful character. He was born and raised in West Texas, and he fit that bill to a T. And so we were having our meetings, Friday afternoon in his office, and he was one of those coaches. Usually coaches, they're on to the next activity. So we're getting ready to leave. He goes, "Where are you all going?" He goes, "Let me tell you a story." And so we sit back down on the couch. He goes, you know the 2 best jobs in America? I said, "No, Coach, what do you got?" He said, "Weatherman and the backup quarterback." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, weatherman gets to keep his job, never has to be right." And he goes, "Everybody loves the backup quarterback. Where's the hat? Where's the baseball hat? Carries a clipboard, never gets hit. 2 best jobs in America."
Absolutely right. One of the best jobs in America has got to be play-by-play man for any baseball club. You get to go down to spring training this time of year. You get to check it out. You're getting your eyes on these guys. But we want you to take us behind the scenes a little bit of just what it's like getting down there, getting back in the booth. Because as we talked about last time you were on a little bit, this is spring training for you too. So what are those feelings like, just getting back into the atmosphere, getting back in the booth, sitting down, talking to Spilly again, seeing the faces, and just doing the thing that you love to do?
Well, first of all, I think you hit the proverbial nail on the head. You're getting to do something you love to do. It's great, even though it was far from a full house. I think down in Scottsdale at Salt River Fields, they're allowed to have about 2,100, 2,200 people. But just seeing people out there, seeing kids out on the lawn, enjoying themselves, that's terrific. And you're watching baseball again, and you realize that we're getting closer to normal. Most of the news has been good news lately surrounding the pandemic. And from a broadcast standpoint, it's really, trying to, get in that rhythm again of calling games. And, I find spring training games actually to be a little more difficult. They're not difficult, but they're different than regular season games, because guys are coming in and out of there, and you're trying to keep up. But you're really just presenting the early spring or mid-spring storylines. But overall, it's great to be back in the booth, great to be back with our gang, and great to be watching Major League Baseball.
And it's spring training for you too. You're still getting used to the swing of things, and you're getting your reps in as far as your voice and doing those vocal warm-ups and whatnot. How is that aspect of it? How does that go early on in spring training and getting yourself used to talking for essentially 3 straight hours?
Yeah, I suppose most people who know me would say, "Oh, talking that long is not going to be an issue for him." But it's really finding your baseball voice again, the rhythm of the game, and it's much easier, honestly, when the regular season starts because there is a true rhythm. One of the unique things about spring training this year, as you guys have noticed, it's like, okay, I've had enough, and a team will walk off the field after a couple of outs. If the inning's not
Yeah.
going well, we've seen that already in the 2 games we broadcast. I think 3 or 4 times. The first game went only 7 innings. And at that point, you're really not arguing because, with all due respect to the young guys getting an opportunity, you're pretty much, your storylines are done for the day. But it's a nice warm up for us to get rolling in the regular season. I wouldn't want to just go into game 1 of 162 completely cold, not having been in the booth a few times and talked baseball and as I said, got the rhythm of the sport going again.
One of the things I thought was actually really fascinating because you had made a quip basically about not wasting your good anecdotes in spring training. And day 1, Spilly comes out and tells a story you've never heard before about this guy heckling him in the whole situation. I won't do the whole story. I couldn't do it justice. It's Spilly's story to tell. But my question to you is just, I mean, you've been working with this guy for X number of years in the booth. Y number of years before that as a player developed this relationship. For him to still be able to kind of surprise you with an anecdote like that, does that kind of get your juices going as a broadcaster again?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there are times as a broadcaster where you feel, and just like that, and I'm glad you brought that up, Drew. You're like, man, that's a gem of a story, and we definitely will revisit that. I will draw upon that another time. And I think overall, you have to remember that even if you retell a story, one that you've told. I mean, I've done that many times. I don't think many people at home
Same.
are like, what are you doing? I already heard that story. Come on. I mean, if you
Right.
do, they go, okay, I've heard it before. It's a pretty good story, hopefully. So I'll listen to it again. But many people have not heard it. You can't assume that everybody is sitting on the edge of their seat every night watching, getting to see every ball game. So, but there is that feeling, Drew, that you don't want to blow out the really good ones in March. You want to kind of save them to there's a few more eyeballs on it. But that's the great that's the uniqueness of Spilly. He does have quite a few gems in his pocket. That was a
And
classic, though. Patrick, did you
Best
hear
player
that
on the
one?
team. Put in your best
Yeah.
player.
And I could just, knowing Hurdle so well, I could see him just absolutely laughing his tail off when that thing went down as it did.
And I'm glad Spilly told that story early on in the inning because, as you said, with these innings ending so abruptly with only 1 out or 2 outs or with the bases loaded, you got to get those stories in on the first half of the inning, almost after the first pitch. Go ahead and start telling it just in case you run out of time. And then next thing you know, guys are coming off the field and you're only halfway into
Right.
your big tail.
Yeah. No, that was that was definitely fun. Now, people who are listening to podcasts, what was the story? I'll tell it because you know what, we'll get there again. But basically, it was I asked Billy his favorite spring training moment. He said, and he didn't hesitate. He goes, "I got it. It was my greatest spring moment ever." He goes, "I wasn't playing naturally. Spilly's very self-deprecating. I'm on the bench, and there's some fan up there who keeps yelling, 'Put your best player in.'" And Hurdle, it's spring. Hurdle, and Clint will engage just about anybody anyhow. He goes, "Who's my best player?" He goes, "I got them all out there. Holiday's out there. Tulowitzki's out there. Helton's out there. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Spilborgs." And so Hurdle looks at Spilly. He goes, "Your uncle's up there. He wants you in the game." And he goes, "I don't have any uncles here. I don't have any family here." He goes, "Well, he's got to be related to you somehow. He keeps calling you the best player on the team." And he's wearing Clint out. He's going, "Put your best player in the game." So finally, Clint, 5th inning or whatever, puts Spilly in, and the first pitch he sees, he hits their homer. And the guy comes sprinting down to the edge of the edge of the field, yelling at Hurdle, "I told you so. He's your best player." Hurdle was like almost on the ground laughing. So,
that man was Dave Magadan, and the
Right.
rest is history. He's the hitting coach. No.
Oh man,
Yeah.
it's that one of the things. Actually, I've told a lot of spring training stories and a lot of things that are great about spring training. Sometimes I forget that the characters, the people who are around, the fans who are just out there coaching guys on the backfield on how to fix their swings from the bleachers. They're characters running around there, man. And it's a fun atmosphere to be in.
It's a great atmosphere, as we've talked about before. Most guys, not all guys, but if you're a regular, spring is great. Like if you're Charlie Blackmon, you're just getting ready for the season. It's relaxed. You're getting your work in, as we always hear, and you're ready to go. Now, if you're battling for a spot, obviously that can be stressful. But nobody's lost a game yet. Everybody seems to be in a pretty good mood. The weather's good. The Cactus League's awesome because the furthest you're ever going to have to drive is about 40 minutes. So the players love it. The coaches love it. The media loves it. The broadcasters love it. That's something else we're touching on. We do this on an annual basis in the spring. It is very common to be driving on the 101 and you're sitting there and you turn to your left and there's your favorite baseball player, like a little leaguer in uniform, driving from Peoria down to Scottsdale because he played his 5 innings and he's done. And so, he's probably in a fancier car maybe than you are, but he's driving, no shower. He'll shower back at the complex or whatever. And they leave as soon as they're done with their 5 or 6 innings. They got their 2 or 3 at bats and they're not waiting for the team bus.
It is a lot like high school baseball where you just drive home after the game, if you're a senior and you got your license and you're not going to take the team bus back. And as you said, because it's just such a fantastic area where the 2 farthest ballparks are 45 minutes away. And in some places in Florida, the two of the closer ballparks, you have to travel that long. And so it's just this baseball mecca. Landing in Phoenix, did you get that sense where it was, okay, we're going to be doing this again? Was that another step forward in, kind of preparing yourself and getting really goosed up for the season?
Yeah, it's kind of strange, Patrick, in that I was all geeked up coming down here because, again, as we're just talking about, we've talked about on previous shows, we love spring training, love March down in Scottsdale. It is my favorite time of year. And yes, it's still a little different, but there's bustle. I mean, restaurants are busy, people are out, people they want to get out, and so that is all spring training like from years past. And the thing that's different and strange for me is that I'll be down here for another few days. We have a couple more television games. Then I'll go back for about 10 days and I'll come back again. And those right now are the only 2 trips that I will travel on, or any of us will travel on, for the, foreseeable future. I think the plans were, that all the games this year on the road, we'd call out of the studio again. We're all hopeful that at some point in time that gets lifted, and maybe it's after the All-Star break where we'll get back out on the road because in the interest of full disclosure, to do our jobs properly, we need to be visually being able to see the whole field, have to be around the players and the coaches, so you're getting those anecdotes and you're able to interact with guys on a day-to-day basis. We're going to do a much better job and a service for all the fans out there each evening. And we certainly understand right now why we're going to be in the studio, but it's kind of strange because we're actually going down to spring training a couple of times. And yet when the season starts, when they're on the road, as opposed to normally, being with them, at least initially, we won't be.
Yeah, it's important. We've talked about it on this podcast a couple of times about how it's important for us to be able to get down there sometimes and be there in person and do all that. So if it's important for us, it's X times that much more important for you guys who were there, calling the games and delivering the information to people regularly. I do need to remind everyone, by the way, as we were getting ready for the snowpocalypse here, I wasn't able to get any seltzers still. Sold out of the seltzers. You may have noticed I'm drinking out of the bottle, which is, I've usually got my can of Hot Peak IPA, but the seltzers weren't the only things sold out. They only had the IPA 15. So they've got a regular sampler pack, right, which has all the different things in it, the vanilla porter, the avalanche amber, the lager, and all that stuff. That's a go-to for sure. But my girlfriend Caitlin's in for an interesting weekend because all they had available, no seltzers, no regular sampler pack, just the IPA sampler pack. They've got 4 different kinds of IPAs. So it'll be an interesting weekend for her. But still, wherever you can get your Breck brew, hopefully you can find some seltzers, maybe the regular sampler pack. Either way, it's all damn good beer from a damn good beer company, Breckenridge Brewery. To get stocked up. There might still be a little bit of time before Snowmageddon arrives. And there's one other thing that I've got to do that I haven't been. I remind everybody at the end of every show about the perks of becoming a member at DNVR, but there's a few I've been leaving out, and we've got a special thing going on right now. One thing I forget, I always remind you about the Discord channel and being able to get discounts on hats and shirts and massive bigger beer down at the DNVR bar, all that stuff. But I always forget, you get a free shirt when you sign up for an annual membership. Just right off the bat, we're going to hook you up with a free shirt. And there's a fun new perk going on right now for our next 300 members. If you sign up to become an annual DNVR member, not only do you get that free shirt from the DNVR Locker, but we hook you up with a Recover Holistic Stick from Holistic Wellness. What is that? Well, Holistic Wellness is all about that CBD. The stick they will send you is 10 packs of 10 milligrams CBD. This one is focused on recovery. All you do is pop the top off the stick, pour it in any drink, stir, and consume. It's amazing. No mess. Use it, pop off that stick, stir it in any drink, and check them out at holistikwellness.com. That's HOLISTIK wellness.com. And again, they are also offering our listeners 30% off their first purchase using code DNVR30. So go and sign up now, either just for this or to become a DNVR member. You get hooked up with all kinds of fantastic deals. See what works best for you. They've got all kinds of interesting holistics, including recovery, sleep, stress, beauty, and digest. I'm going to need to try a couple of those beauties. We're going to have to put that to the test, I guess. We'll see what happens there. But check them out at thednvr.com today. Become a member of the family.
And with all this money that you are going to be clearly saving with our discount codes and what have you, you might be able to save up for a travel camper. Now, Drew, your partner, Ryan Spilborgs, he drove all the way out with this camper and then immediately brought it back. Did you get a chance finally yesterday afternoon before he made his way to New Mexico to take a look at this this monstrosity that he was traveling
legendary item?
Yeah,
it's it was a mini monstrosity. I did. I went. He was parked right next to me, so we went out there, and he gave me the grand tour. And it's a great little thing. He had a lot of fun with it with his family this summer. They went out, he said, probably 10, 12 times, mini little camping trips. And it was really cool. He's taking probably some more video going back. He shot something out on social media that he got to Grants, New Mexico last night. So he was safe and sound at the KOA campground there. And I'm going to check in with him a little bit later after we're done here and make sure he's getting close to home. But I tell you what, seeing Spilly in one of those enormous pickup trucks pulling this camper is just perfect. That's all I can tell you.
Cousin Eddie. I went on the KOA website and there wasn't anything about a Ryan Spilborg's autograph session, but he wanted everyone to come on down there if they were in the area. It'll be interesting to see if he bumped into anyone.
Yeah, he probably had the TV going, leaned up against the back wall of the camper with a cold one going. At least I hope that's what I would be doing. Yeah,
is that a purchase coming from the Goodman family now? Or does that entice you, or no? You just give me the steel birds and I'll just fly around where I need to go.
I thought. Listen, my my father-in-law has at different times had like the huge ones, like the bus kind of campers, or motorhomes, I should say. And we had borrowed his on a couple of occasions, and it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Who knows down the road? I told Spilly. Actually, I think I said this on the air. I said, it's Travels with Charlie, man. It's John Steinbeck, and I had to first tell Spilly who John Steinbeck was, and then fill him in on the details of that Charlie was a dog and he was traveling across the country with him. But that may be my future. You never know.
That's speaking of retelling stories, since we're on the subject of both Spilly and that, I think I haven't told this on the podcast in a long time, but so that you know this one, Goody. The very first time I met Ryan Spilborg is actually the very first time that I met a lot of the people involved with the Rockies. Before I had gotten credentials, there was something I was lucky enough to get invited to back when I was just doing Purple Row, the blogging days. And it was a bowling alley event. Carlos Gonzalez and his wife were hosting, and Michael Kadire, Justin Morneau, those guys. That's the era of Rockies that we're talking about there. And I was as excited to meet Spilly as I was any of them. And I went up and I told him, and he was, I think that was around the time he was really starting to make the transition into broadcasting. And so I had told him who I was and, what I was doing, and that I was really a fan of the 2007 documentary when he was running around behind the scenes and he was doing his camera stuff and him wanting to be a filmmaker. I was saying, man, you've got to make your movie about that year. But he wanted my review of him as a broadcaster so far. That was just, and all the other guys were perfectly great to meet. Michael Kadire was especially warm and inviting. I remember that. But, Spilly turning it into an entire conversation saying, so what do you think so far? How am I doing? Do you think I'm doing a good job as a broadcaster? Have I made any big mistakes? I know those Purple Row guys can be tough on us, and he was so down to have a real conversation that first time I met him. I remember I was really blown away by that. He's always been that way ever since.
Yeah, I mean, Spilly approached broadcasting and still does the same way he approached his baseball career as an athlete, and that he wants and solicits constructive criticism. And he opens that door to anyone, whether
clearly.
I don't mean it like I'm not saying that about you, Drew, but I mean, I'm probably a little more selective as to whose opinions I'm going to value, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but I do mean that in a legitimate way. And I'm not talking about you guys, certainly. But Spilly, I've heard him say, coach me up, tell me how I can get better. And so he did approach and does approach his broadcasting career probably in the same vein that he did his athletic career. And I applaud that.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I think it comes through in the energy of the broadcast. And it's why even here in spring training, when the ball club's on AT&T Sports, you can't miss the team, man. You guys are having a lot of fun. And so we really appreciate it. I know that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. And I think with anything, if you have fun doing it, hopefully people at home are having fun. You're never, ever, ever going to please everybody. You're going to have the crowd that stick to baseball, stick to ball one, strike one, that kind of thing. But you have to be you, and you have to enjoy yourselves. And hopefully if you're enjoying yourselves and the camaraderie is real, the affection, I think, for each other is real, that it comes across at home and it pleases more people than it doesn't.
Yeah, you got a game tomorrow on Saturday, another one on Monday against the Dodgers, and it's you're getting geared up. You've got 4 games in a short amount of time. How much of a slog is it during the 162 game season when it's just every single day? This is a little bit easier. It's a little enjoyable. It's the front end of the season. Again, you're getting your pipes ready for it. This is exciting. This is a good problem to have, where there's just baseball games every single day. And it's a blessing more than anything, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the worst day at the ballpark, it's
Right.
a great day still. And you have to keep that perspective. And we all can find reasons to kvetch, good Yiddish word. I think I've thrown that one out before.
I was gonna say, was that the
guys,
one you had
but,
used before? Yeah, that was. Yeah, you're teaching us stuff.
I may have,
Yeah,
or I may have
kvetch.
used a
Yeah,
different Yiddish word. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
anyhow, you can always find something to complain about. But we have marvelous jobs. We're going to the ballpark. All the things that you say, and you want to always remember that. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. But to more specifically answer your question, from a macro standpoint, you realize, Patrick, that it is a grind. Just like for the players, it's day in, day out, and you're preparing yourself. And certainly, even from our perspective, winning beats the heck out of losing. So when you have a team that's doing well or is playing well over a given period of time, you have a bounce in your step, and you're really excited about going to the ballpark. There's absolutely no denying that, but it can be a grind. When you're working 20 in a row. Again, I never want this to come off wrong. It's still the best. It's the best, but it's day in and day out. And when you're working a game, back to back that went 4 hours, whether it's because it went 12 innings or it was one of those slow moving games that was 10-9 and it took 4 hours. You don't probably have the same energy in the 8th inning that you had in the first couple of innings. But one of the beautiful things also about baseball is after, a 3-game set or maybe the occasional 4-game set, a new team's coming in. So, you're excited about, the Phillies are in town and you get to watch Romuto and Bryce Harper. And so there's new storylines. It's the same thing for you guys as you guys do what you do on a day-to-day basis. It is a unique sport in that the volume of games. I mean, people say that about the NBA, and I, obviously worked in the NBA for a long time. They say the same thing about hockey, but it is almost literally twice the number of games that they have in those sports, and those seasons can be long.
Right. So along those lines, last one before we get onto the field and start talking some baseball, but Patrick's walked up to it. Now I'm just very curious about vocal exercises. Like literally, do you do things to take care of your voice? As somebody who used to semi-seriously sing, I remember some silly voice exercises I used to do or things I know there's some science that goes into taking care of the vocal cords. Like, I mean, you're getting your reps in too. So is there an element? What do you do to take care of your money makers?
I don't do anything specific. I do know some people who drink tea with honey in it and that sort of thing. I'm not a big tea guy. There are times, usually at the start of the broadcast, Boyers is one of I'll sneak in one of my big sponsors on my podcast, and they're a big sponsor of the Rockies. But I do have. It's funny. I was never really a huge coffee drinker, but now I will drink decaf, and I'll get my mocha from the Boyers Cafe around the corner. And just having something warm is soothing on your voice. Knock on wood, I've been very fortunate in that, some people have dealt with, laryngitis periodically or that sort of thing. There's only been a couple of times in my career where I've dealt with that. You try to speak from your diaphragm a little bit more. I remember that from college. So that I think is helpful, but nothing specific to give you a long-winded answer.
No, I'm very curious about that whole science because I was never big into it either. I remember showing up to a gig and I was like having a whiskey and Coke or something, and somebody in another band was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm not that good a singer to begin with, bro." Like, I don't know.
Right. I'll tell you this. When I was doing the Nuggets, the first couple of years, I would do. So I do like 25 of the games on radio, and I'm trying to remember. I think it may have been Jerry Schimmel who would do 25 on TV, and I would do the other whatever it was, 50 or something on television. Radio is more taxing because it's nonstop. And a few years ago, for several years, I was doing college football for ESPN Radio. And at the end of a radio broadcast, your voice is more fatigued because you do have to kind of get it in shape to do radio because it's almost nonstop. Baseball on radio, even though it's a beautiful sport on radio, it is a little more forgiving because of the pace of the game. But when you're doing basketball or when you're doing football and describing it and spitting words out quickly over a long period of time, it does tax you a little bit more.
I've just been getting into hockey, and what's his name, Connor, that does
Connor
the
McGahey.
Avalanche, Connor McGahey, and I know he's done some work with you guys in the past. I know I've met him over doing some Rocky stuff, but I was listening to him do hockey. I was like, how are you doing this? This is incredible.
Nonstop. That's nonstop.
Yeah.
Even more so than radio.
Absolutely, because even on television, the nature of calling hockey on television even is more of almost a semi-radio broadcast. And Mark Mosher used to do radio, does a terrific job there, and Connor does a great job also. You had that in those situations, you do have to build up your vocal cords so they don't fatigue and your voice is still strong late in the third period.
Yeah.
I did not even a full summer. It was more like a month of calling games for a summer collegiate wood bat league in here in town and for the Boulder Collegians. And yeah, sure, there were doubleheaders thrown in there as well, but it was not for me. I said, nah, I think I need a different route talking about baseball, not every single pitch that happens. And man, that was rough, but it was fun just getting to watch baseball every day. And you know it. If you get to do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life, as you said.
Yeah, my two oldest boys played at different times in that league and played up at Carpenter Park against the Collegian. So good times.
Also good times, as everybody knows, if you're a sports fan at all, March Madness. Look, it's just a fantastic time to be alive as a sports fan, especially if you happen to have the DraftKings Sportsbook app and you're a fan of underdogs, which, look, we know you are. You're listening to the show. You're hanging out with the show. You're probably a fan of underdogs. We are, no fun to root for the Overcats, as Patrick and I have apparently decided to start calling them. You root for the underdogs. So if you can go on your DraftKings Sportsbook app and pick an underdog for the tournament anytime here in this next couple of days, the window, I think you've got through the weekend now to do this. You bet $4 on an underdog. If they win, you make out of there with $256. It's that simple. DraftKings Sportsbook app is always hooking up their customers with fantastic promos, sometimes just throwing free money at you to bet. You can bet on all kinds of different sports, of course, the big ones, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, but you can bet on the KBO, UFC, all kinds of fun and interesting stuff. Hopefully rugby soon. We got to get them in on the rugby circuit with our guys over at Colton Strickler and the DNVR Rugby podcast. But download the top-rated sportsbook DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code DNVR when you sign up to turn $4 into $256 if the underdog of your choosing pulls off the upset. That's code DNVR to turn $4 into $256 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
It's that time of year for those underdogs and not the Overcats. Nobody wants, when you're in the, I guess by the time you get to the Final Four, you want, most of the chalk to go there, but the 12 seeds over the 5s.
It's funny I say all that. Stuff. Both my parents went to KU. They're Overcats every year. But then they end losing to Bucknell and stuff. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. Sorry.
Bucknell.
I know if she's not listening
Bucknell,
now, she'll hear
school.
That. Yeah.
Good school, Bucknell.
So let's get you out on the baseball diamond there, Goody, and just ask you just the obligatory first of the year spring training question of who's catching your eye right now.
Well, in the first couple of games that we broadcast, couple of things, collecting my thoughts. CJ Cron swinging the bat really well.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that's done it before. He's hit 30 in a year, 29 in a year. I think it was a nice acquisition. And he's going to hit in the middle of that lineup. I would be shocked if he's not at first base, pretty frequently. Josh Fuentes, you never count him out. He's swinging the bat well this spring. We've seen him at first. We've seen him at third. I don't think they're opposed to letting him run out there and play left field. He has an energy to him, I think, that's infectious. I was really impressed, guys, the other day, and you probably heard me say this, and Spilly jumped on it also naturally. When Ryan McMahon hit that ball out to center field, he's hit a couple of home runs. That was a 96, 97 mile an hour fastball up in the zone. And that's a pitch that's hard to get to for just about anybody. But he had struggled with plus velocity. And he's open about that. I mean, he kind of had a loop in his swing, and he really worked hard in the last year, going back to last spring, in eliminating that. And I thought that was really good to see, that home run he hit the other night. So, initially, those are a couple of things, certainly that jump out. The other one is Austin Gomber, or the other person I should say is Austin Gomber. His numbers so far this year, again, early in spring, have been good, but just watching how he pitches, he has 4 legitimate offerings. He has a really good curveball. I mean, a plus curveball, and he'll be able to throw it at altitude. His fastball's got some sneakiness to it. He got a strikeout, above the hands at 94. So there's plenty of velo in there. He throws a slider, and I saw an outstanding changeup also. I was impressed with Gomber the other day, and so far what he's done in the spring, which I think will add to what is the strength of this club, as you guys have articulated on your podcast on a number of occasions. It is the starting rotation. And I know Marquez had a little bit of a rough one today. I don't worry about what happens on March the 12th, especially with a guy like Herman. But that rotation, we've said it collectively together. There are a lot of teams who would trade their rotation for the Rockies rotation.
Yeah. Oh no! Did we get a frozen Patrick right when he was ready? I'm sure he's ready to come in with a good one too. I'm sure he had it locked and loaded and ready to go. Oh, there we go. Maybe we got you back now.
He's moving again.
Okay.
He got staggered. Patrick got staggered.
Just a slight stagger. There we go.
Yeah, and Gomber's going to be key too. If Antonio Senzatella isn't going to be ready to go, we're going to finally start to see him in action. He's going to be on a backfield throwing 2 simulation innings, or in a simulated game, I should say. So Gomber's going to be valuable. I loved him, being paired with Freeland, finally having 2 lefties in the rotation again. You think about the last time they did, was 17 and 18, and Tyler Anderson was doing his thing. So Gomber's been a real big piece. We've got a couple questions and comments from YouTube asking about Ryan Meltapia. There's been a lot of talk about him. He wants to win a batting title. He led the team in batting average this year. What are your thoughts on him so far in the early going in spring? He's got the job now, finally, after, couple of years already here in the majors, somewhat full seasons. He's the guy. He's the guy in left field now. What are your thoughts on Ryan Meltapia going into this season?
I just think of his work ethic, and I think of his hand-eye coordination. He has great hand-eye coordination. He has great confidence in himself, and I'm sure his confidence is at an all-time high after hitting 321 last year. And he knows that he's not fighting to make a club. He's going to be on the club, and he's going to play a lot. I think what will be really interesting for Rockies fans, and really for all of us, is how Buddy works his outfield, because as they build, you really want to know what you have with Sam Hilliard and with Garrett Hampson. So, take a Chris Owings, for instance, and this is not to slight Chris Owings, who's a really very good athlete and a good baseball player. But if he's a super utility guy and he gets, 6, 8 at bats, 10 at bats in a week, fine. But if you're the Rockies, at least in my opinion, you want to get more at bats for Hilliard, more at bats for Hampson, because you want to find out, are they going to be able to click at the big league level and really become impactful? And so with Blackman in right and Tapia in left, and and some combination with those other two playing, I think you're going to see a shuffling around of those four guys, most notably in the outfield. So that's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, Tapia is a confident guy, and I throw him in that same kind of grouping with Josh Fuentes, and that you never count a guy out that is continually trying to get better and believes in themselves and keeps moving up a rung on the ladder seemingly every year.
I'll throw a Tapia stat at you because, and as longtime listeners of the show know that Tapia has long been my guy, because my first year out there really covering the team was that 2013 Grand Junction squad I went out and saw, where he was doing all kinds of interesting stuff. But I followed him very closely through the minors, and he never went into a 4-game hitting slump. He never went 4 consecutive games without a hit. And only, I think, a handful of times did he go 3 straight games. So it was basically like if he went 2 games without a hit, he had something like a 95% chance in the minors of getting a hit in that 3rd game.
That's an early DraftKings tip if you're looking for a guy to get a hit tomorrow.
Well, and consistency is one of those things. We talk about the tools in baseball, contact and power, and we know about the Rockies, and we talk a lot about hitting on the road and the struggles of adjusting to and from. And one of the things that's always intrigued me about Tapia has been his ability to do it consistently. And we saw it for the first time last year at the major league level, whereas every day, every at bat, even if he struck out on a ball in the dirt, he was finding a way to mess with the pitcher. And I think if he can get that to translate, it'll be fascinating to see how it plays at Coors Field. A guy who doesn't slump can be a real problem.
And I think I know he hit 9 home runs 2 years ago. He really didn't. What did he have? 1 home run last year?
Yeah.
There's going to be more in there. And I know he went the other way quite a bit, but this is a strong guy. And I was watching him take BP yesterday. It doesn't, he doesn't have to, swing out of his shoes to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So I think there's going to be a little more slug in there this year than there was last year. And one of the other observations being down here, the old chip on the shoulder that I think was articulated most vociferously by Kyle Freeland is legitimate, and it has permeated the team. I mean, they to a man believe that, hey, we're better than people believe, and we're going to go out there and play hard, and we're going to surprise some people. So that definitely was evident in with some of the guys I've had the opportunity to talk with.
The crazy thing about Ryan Meltapia is he's only 17 days older than Sam Hilliard. So you go back and you say, yeah, Sam Hilliard still needs to establish himself as a big leaguer, and there's a lot of projectability in there. I think you can still say the same thing about Ryan Meltapia, where he's still figuring it out. And every year he comes into spring training, he's a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, a little bit muscular. And it's like we still don't have a finished product with him. We don't necessarily know about Hilliard. But you're right, Goody, is that outfield kind of formation and the rotation of that with Hampson getting thrown in the mix as well. And we know how well his speed plays. And with Charlie needing an off day, every now and again, you could see a nice split between those 4 guys sharing duties in the outfield.
Well, you have, again, a group in large measure that needs to prove themselves. And if the guys that maybe have established themselves at least as, big leaguers, they're not content with just being a big leaguer. So Ryan Meltapia had a nice, abbreviated 2020, but he's by no means content. Josh Fuentes, I think, feels like he belongs now, but he's by no means, content in whatever role he has. And then you have some of the aforementioned guys like Hampson and Hilliard, and a guy we haven't talked about, Brendan Rodgers, who are trying to establish themselves. And Brendan Rodgers swung the bat very well, down here. Some of this, even a couple of his outs are loud outs. He's getting the barrel to the baseball, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch how he develops this year. And listen, there are going to be some rough times, but I think you got to, if you're Buddy, you got to stay with him and let him really get a great number of at-bats this year and see how he can grow, because he wasn't drafted 3rd overall by accident. So There are across the board a number of guys that are not simply content to be, hey, I'm a big league guy, and I'm gonna collect a nice paycheck.
Couple guys proving themselves. We got a question here from Adam, who, by the way, I met at spring training a couple of years ago in the before times, rocking a DNVR mask. We love to see that. This catching tandem with Elias Diaz and Dom Nunez, both of whom are hitting the heck out of the baseball right now. You guys talked about it a little bit on the broadcast. We're all going to miss Tony Walters. And and also not only just the character and everybody loves him and the fans love him and all that stuff, but the guy could catch a ball game. The guy could frame a pitch. He could let it go down to second base, all that stuff. And I don't think that Diaz and Nunez are there defensively, but then you see their offensive potential. You go, well, there's going to be a different story for the Rockies at catcher this year. And it's going to be fascinating to watch these two guys, how they establish themselves. This is going to be one of, I think, the more intriguing stories of this season for the Rockies.
You have to have tremendous focus to be a catcher. You cannot take one pitch off. If you miss framing a pitch, or if the ball glances off, the glove, and all of a sudden you give up 90 feet, and the next guy hits a bloop single, and that's a run. So you have to keep tremendous focus behind the plate. Your number one job, if you go 0 for 4 with 4 punch outs, you can still have a great day because you're working with that pitcher and trying to guide him and whoever comes in after him to the finish line and an opportunity to shake hands. So that's the number one priority. So far, you're right, offensively. I mean, Diaz hit another home run today, or his first, I should say, this spring, but he's hitting 500 this spring. Dom Nunez hit a towering 2-run home run in the ball game we had on AT&T yesterday. They're going to get more punch, and they need to get
off a pretty good pitcher too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that will be interesting to watch on both sides of the ball. But they have to be better overall offensively than they've been the last couple of years. And now you're taking out a guy that you would assume most years is going to hit 35 home runs and drive in 100 and something in Nolan. So they even if Nolan was here, you need greater production from a number of spots outside of shortstop. So the catching tandem, I think, is going to provide certainly more punch than they've gotten recently. And that's not a backhanded shot at Tony. We all love Tony, great guy, and kind of self-made behind the plate because he was a middle infielder his whole life, and initially with the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, looking at the bullpen again, it was only 2 games that you saw so far. Again, kind of gives credence to the idea that you're not looking at stats. It doesn't matter the outcomes quite as much. So Estevez and Olivares, the stat lines don't look great. They looked great for Justin Lawrence. Of any of those 3 guys, or just anyone else that kind of stuck out, and you say, hey, regardless of what they did on Wednesday or Thursday, anyone jump out at you as having that stuff that this is a guy that is going to be in the pen for the next couple of years?
Well, Lawrence is an interesting arm angle, and he throws the ball in the upper 90s. So that gets your attention right away. And now it's the ability to be consistent and the ability, can you do it when there's fans in the stands and all of a sudden you're asked if it's a little bit of a tighter ball game. But that's an intriguing arm. For Carlos Estevez, he's, not had a good spring so far. He gave up another home run yesterday. I don't worry a ton about it right now. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a concern. I think he's still trying to get that, the velocity back up where it is. But I would say the last couple of weeks of March, when he goes out there 4, 5, 6 times, you want to start seeing, some 1, 2, 3 innings and some missing some bats and that sort of thing. So I'm not as concerned about it right now because it's still the first half of March. But, given the fact that he struggled last year, you'd like to see some real solid outings as we march closer to April 1st. I was interested to see Ben Bowden yesterday. Got to see him work a little bit from the left side. Probably have to see him a little bit more before I can give you a definitive feel for what I think the Rockies have. But I know Robert Stevenson. I didn't get to watch it today. I know he get to give up a run today. I've heard good things about how Michael Gibbons looks and is throwing, and kind of how he's emerged some in the clubhouse with that group of relievers. Also, Scott Oberg threw a clean inning today. That was great to see.
So good.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to see Scott Oberg just on the mound at all. I didn't even care what he does, right? For the first inning, you almost don't care. I remember I was down at spring training 1.0 last year when they first announced Daniel Bard, and he came out, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a nice little story, whatever. And he got rocked, man. He maybe recorded 2 outs. And, and you just go, well, that was a nice story. That's probably over. Turns out sometimes it takes guys a minute to get it going in spring training. That said, to see Obi go out and do it and just be there, I was just like, how can you not just be overwhelmed almost with joy at that?
Yeah. Good guy, not once with blood clots, but 3 times with blood clots. Mm-hmm. And to see him go out there today and to have a good outing and to feel like a baseball player again, I'm sure for Scott is terrific. And I look forward to seeing more of that naturally.
Yeah, it was his first game pitching with the Rockies since August 16th, 2019. So that's one of those moments that people are going to love to get back inside of Coors Field and just celebrate the game of baseball. And seeing Oberg back on the mound at Coors Field, should that happen, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, that'll be another great day. That'll be another great day for Rockies fans and for him as well.
Yeah. Well, it'll be a great day, and then quickly it'll move forward because he'll want to talk not very much about that and all about working in the 8th to 9th inning to preserve leads and help this ball club. So and he if he comes back and is the Scott Oberg that we know, that's a huge boost to that bullpen, obviously.
Yeah.
Bullpens are insurance, and hey, everyone's got insurance. That's right, I did it. One last one for you. And our friends over at Gabby Insurance, actually not an insurance thing on its own. They're helping you get best pricing. They do an apples to apples comparison on your current coverage with up to 40 of the top insurance providers like Progressive, Nationwide, Travelers. Customers on average saving up to $961 a year. Our guy AJ Hafley over at DNVR Avs just checked this thing out, said it's going to save him about $300 this year. I'm going to check mine out. It may not be a surprise to let all of you know that it's the missus that runs that department here in this household, and so we'll have to see how much it's going to save us too. But check it out. It's GABI. You can download the app right now. You're probably paying too much for your car or home insurance. See how much it can save you. Totally free right now to check it. No obligation. Go to Gabby.com/DNVR. Remember, they do not sell your info. You will not get blown up with insurance calls. It's just a way to help see if you can save some money. Again, go to GABI.com/DNVR and see how much you can save. Last thing here, Goody, we did ask you last time, or maybe time before, I don't know. We played a little Charles Cobb, Chuck Nasty with some new things going on in the game of baseball, and it turns out they were getting wild there with MiLB announced some new stuff. What are your thoughts on this announcement of the things we're about to see in minor league baseball this year?
Yeah, there's so many of them. Why don't you go one by one again? Because I'll tell you the one that jumps in my mind that I don't like is, they have to disengage the rubber and you can only throw over twice with a given hitter at the plate. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, as a base stealer, I was like, cool.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is, I don't know. I mean, again, nobody likes, everybody boos when a guy throws over 3-4 times. I get it. I right now, and we can change our minds. I've changed my mind on the DH, as you know. But I think that you should be able to place your fielders any place you want. So if there's 3 guys on the right side because you have a pull hitting left-handed bat, that's the prerogative of the manager. And I don't want to see that messed with. The robo umpires, I'm out on that. You were just talking. I mean, we were just talking, fellas, a few minutes ago about missing Tony Walters, and he made an art of being able to, stick pitches and work ground up with his hands and steal strikes. There's an art to catching. Otherwise, you just put a couch back there, right?
Those old trampolines I used to have when I was a kid.
Yeah. And listen, I know, and part of it is that it's a big sold item in television, regional television, national television, the strike zone. And you'll hear me say, where's that? Where was that pitch? And it seems like it's always a constant referendum on the umpire. But these guys are a part of the game. They've always been part of the game. They get it right at a very high rate. Not an easy job. So listen, I have not only great respect for that, but I think it's part of the game. And I don't want to, I think there'll be just as many issues with technology, if not more, if we go to a robo umpire. You say, wait a second, they just called that strike. That was neck high. I mean, Altuve's, I know they'll adjust it. I understand that, but I'm out on that.
No,
so those are 3 that I'm not, that I haven't embraced. We'll give you some of the other ones, Patrick, because every league's got like 3 new rules.
They do. I was gonna say, Goody, would you be more in favor of a robotic umpire if every 4,600 pitch a guy was just ejected from the game because he didn't like the call? If they could somehow randomize that, would that make it better? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
The other one that was really good, that this is one I think you'll like because it's pretty basic and it doesn't really mess with the game. We were talking about how a lot of these you might not necessarily notice if you're in the stands. I think you might notice an electronic umpire depending on what that looks like, the pickoff moves. But bases being larger, we'll see that in AAA. So the Isotopes will have that instead of a 15 by 15 inch base, it'll be 18 by 18. So sure, it's a little bit, you get a slightly larger lead. You're getting a little bit closer to second base, but they're going to make it with a slightly stickier substance, a little bit lower to the ground for base stealers. And it could help with avoiding certain collisions and things of that nature. So I think that would be one you're in favor of.
That one's interesting. It will help with stolen bases because the guy, 3 inches, sooner can touch his foot or his hand to the bag. Maybe
makes a difference.
The occasional spiking at first base on bang plays where a runner, inadvertently spiked the first baseman's heel or the pitcher covering, that sort of thing. Probably maybe it mitigates that potential a little bit. That'll be that one. I'm curious to see how it plays out. Here's another thing. Balls down the first base line that eluded the bag. Now there's three more inches of surface that it can catch the bag and skip past the first baseman, that sort of thing. So that one's intriguing.
It's kind of interesting. There we go. We got the official.
And I say, and when I say intriguing, not that I say it's intriguing to definitely adopt it, but I want to see what the data shows and how it plays out and what the after a great volume of games, what is the opinions of people in the game who play the game and people who coach and manage the game. Did it make a huge difference, and was it a positive ultimately or not?
I think there is also even some room where you can, at the halfway point in the season, they can tweak things accordingly. So there'll be some of that, and it's only 1 per league. So that's kind of a nice thing. You're not overwhelming guys with all of these kind of newfangled rules and different elements of the game. It's each league has something different. So it's one thing at a time per level. I think it'll be interesting, like as you said, to get that data. And if that's what they're doing with the affiliated teams, it'll be interesting if they get even more creative with some of those partner leagues, like the Pioneer League, where Grand Junction and the Rocky Mountain Vibes are playing here in state of Colorado. If they'll get involved in crazier rules. There was actually a point in 2019 where there was a discussion with the Atlantic League who's now a partner league. They were going to even move the pitcher's mound or the pitcher's plate back 2 feet. So still no word on what's going to happen with the partner leagues, but you can certainly experiment a little bit if need be for the betterment of the game, as wacky as it might sound. We'll just kind of have to let the guys play and see. Did you know that there was a rule in the Atlantic League a couple years ago where you could steal first base? Had you heard of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I did see. Yeah, I did. See
this
that.
it's
we all
we
want,
don't.
we all want more action. We all want more action.
That's right.
That one's a little different.
That
I was
one's
gonna say, keep your response to 5 expletives.
Yeah,
no more
right.
than 5 expletives on stealing first base. But the interesting thing about it is, Goody, and this is what you're gonna love. Guys didn't do it. It may have happened once because you understand that guys are like players from the Dominican Republic. They're gonna hit their way off the island. These guys playing professional baseball that aren't underneath the umbrella of minor league baseball. Nobody is going to look and go, wow, look at that. You stole first base.
Great at
10
stealing
times.
first, dude.
You have to hit the baseball, and that's how these guys are going to be seen and improve their skills. So they didn't actually really, adopt to that to a degree.
Yeah, I hate it because then it would eliminate from the dictum of every broadcaster in baseball the line, you can't steal first base.
That's right. That's right. We do have to wrap it up. There's one other thing that I thought of since we were talking about these things, and it was just asked of Bud Black this morning, because the shift rule, right, says like a certain number of people have to be on the infield dirt, but that isn't standard at every ballpark. And so, like, could their creator, like, well, our team's going to start, like, just building the dirt so that it goes all the way out into medium deep right field so that they can shift better?
Again, yeah, and I know where Buddy stands on this, and that's why I'm not for that. One of the things, I don't know if Buddy's been asked this yet this spring, especially with Coors Field, you saw Tampa do this with certain guys. I mean, if the data says he hits the ball in the air 65% of the time, why not go with 4 outfielders with certain guys in certain situations? And then again, if you're going to start telling people where you have to play players, that wouldn't be a possibility. But I thought it was fascinating when Tampa did that. And the place to do it, you'd think, is Coors Field, because it has the most cavernous outfield in baseball.
And the Rockies have Garrett Hampson, who plays second base, but also can go out and play center. You can literally just have Hampson if he's playing second, or Owings just go out and play a second center field. And now Story's playing right up the middle, and you've got McMahon on the left side, and whoever's at first there. I love it. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen variations. You guys were talking about that with a guy who's a slugging left-handed bat but doesn't run very well. You're not just seeing a guy, 10 feet out on the outfield grass. You're seeing guys that are like 50 feet out on the outfield grass, taking away a line single. That's always been a guy squares it up. So low line drive to right. And we've seen that caught on occasion, where that's a hit in every league in the world at every level. But listen, hitters can make adjustments also. And I think that's part of the, interesting element of the game. All of these rules, most of these rules are to create more offense, create more action, I should say. Not necessarily offense, but create more action. And I'm all for that. And I think it has to happen somewhat organically, as opposed to always, messing with rule changes. But listen, you have to experiment. I never thought I'd be on board with putting a runner at second base to start extra innings, but there's a whole lot of strategy involved in that.
Yeah.
And it does pique my interest.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Again, I've said this with you guys. I've said it on my podcast many times. I've probably said it on our television broadcast at select times. Every sport, every person, every technology group, every company, what are you always trying to do? You're trying to evolve. You're trying to get better. You're trying to improve your product. And in the case of baseball, even though it is a marvelous product that has stood the test of time for 150 plus years, they can evolve as well. I don't know if it always has to be dramatic, but we've seen it in other sports. The two-line pass in hockey, and now it's opened up some great, opportunities for, 2-on-1s or even, just the guy breaks away on the goalie. So I think that was, a great advancement several, number of years ago now in hockey. So, baseball should look at these things. I'm not opposed to it. You're asking me at first glance. Baseball also has the luxury of experimenting not at the highest level, but at some of the lower levels, which the other sports may not have the luxury of doing.
Right. Yeah, well, it's going to be a really intriguing season for a lot of reasons. It's going to be a lot of fun, as we've talked about for a lot of stuff today. Make sure that you're following. So Game on TV tomorrow, Saturday, if you're all listening, and Monday. Make sure you're checking out the AT&T SportsNet broadcast there on those days. Make sure you're listening to this right now on a podcast app, which means you can go right over, search for the Drew Goodman podcast, download it, make sure you're getting all that stuff. You don't want to miss any of these can't miss interviews. Really, really good stuff there on the podcast. Make sure you add it to your regular podcast feed. Make sure you're following everybody on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick D. Lyons, at Drew Goodman 42, at DNVR _Rockies. Anybody? We don't need to give Spilly's ad a shout out these days, and he's doing fine. But follow Spilly; he's doing great stuff on Twitter. He's a must follow. What is it? Spilly, I mean SPILL.
Spilly Goat.
Spilly Goat.
It's Spilly Goat.
Yeah.
Follow
Jenny on Twitter. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, at Jenny Kavnar.
Yeah. Everybody on the social media, we're having fun. It's all a way of becoming and continuing to be a part of the Colorado Rockies community. And we appreciate you all out there. We know that when you follow us, when you subscribe to the DNVR.com and you get your discounts and you come and hang out with us in the Discord and you're talking with us 24/7 about baseball or the other sports, or sometimes just whatever you saw on TV, whatever good movie you saw, whatever you made for dinner tonight, all of it. We're a community out here sharing this experience together. So we appreciate you all very, very much. We hope you will continue to be absolutely awesome out there. I promise you, we will continue to be absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew's Creasman and Goodman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.